Do you know why Jewish millionaires perform a specific ritual with salt before touching their money each morning? It's not superstition. It's not some strange religious quirk. It's one of the most powerful wealth activation secrets that has been deliberately hidden from you for centuries. I'm going to reveal something today that will change everything you think you know about money, success, and why certain families build generational wealth while others struggle paycheck to paycheck their entire lives. My name is Rabbi Mordecai, and for the past 47 years, I've dedicated my life to studying the ancient texts of the Talmud and Kabbalah. My grandfather was a respected rabbi in Jerusalem. His father before him taught these same principles in Poland before the war. This knowledge has been protected within my family for 8 generations. What I'm about to share with you isn't theory. It isn't some motivational speech designed to make you feel good for a few hours. This is a practical, actionable method that I've personally used to transform my own financial reality and that I've taught to thousands of people across 4 continents. And it works regardless of your religion, your background, your education level, or where you're starting from today. Now here's what's important. The ritual I'll reveal in the middle of this teaching is so powerful that when you apply it correctly, you'll see undeniable signs within 24 to 48 hours. Not weeks, not months, days. But you need to stay with me until the end, because if you miss even one step, if you skip even one element, it simply won't work. And I'm going to show you exactly why this ancient Jewish wisdom about salt and water and wealth is the missing piece you've been searching for your entire life. I learned this secret when I was 19 years old. It was 3 days after Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. My grandfather called me into his study. I remember the smell of old books, the flickering candlelight, the way the shadows danced on the walls lined with ancient texts. He looked at me with those piercing eyes that seemed to see straight through to my soul. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Mordecai, the Goyim work for money. We make money work for us. And it all begins with understanding what money truly is." At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Money was money. You earned it, you spent it, you saved it, if you were smart. What else was there to understand? But then he showed me passages from texts I had never seen before. Teachings that had been passed down from rabbi to rabbi, father to son, for over 3,000 years. And he explained that this wasn't just spiritual knowledge. This was practical wisdom that had allowed the Jewish people to survive and thrive through every persecution, every exile, every attempt to destroy us. He made me promise 2 things that night. First, that I would practice this wisdom every single day of my life. And second, that when the time was right, I would share this knowledge with others who were truly ready to receive it. The time is now, and if you're still watching, you're ready. The first time I actually saw this work with my own eyes, I was 23 years old. I had just finished my rabbinical studies, and I was completely broke. I'm talking about checking the cushions of my couch for coins broke. I had tried everything the world told me to try. I applied for jobs that never called back. I tried to start a small business that failed within 3 months. I even asked family members for help, which was humiliating. Nothing worked. Then I remembered exactly what my grandfather had taught me. I followed the exact method, the same one I'm going to teach you today. I gathered the elements. I performed the ritual at the precise time. I spoke the words with complete conviction. Within 48 hours, I received an unexpected check in the mail from an old insurance policy I had completely forgotten about. 3 days later, a man I had met briefly at a wedding called me and offered me a teaching position at a prestigious yeshiva. Within 1 month, my entire financial situation had transformed completely. That's when I knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't just ancient philosophy. This was real, tangible, measurable power. The Talmud teaches that there are spiritual laws governing every aspect of physical reality. These laws existed before money was invented, before governments were formed, before any religion was established. The ancient rabbis discovered these laws through thousands of years of observation, study, and practice, and they encoded this wisdom into specific rituals, specific words, specific actions that anyone can use to activate these universal principles. When you align yourself with these laws, you're not fighting against the current anymore. You're flowing with the force that governs all abundance in the universe. And that's when what others call miracles start to become your normal daily experience. If you're ready to activate this ancient wisdom in your own life, I want you to write in the comments right now these exact words. My wealth is activated. I read every comment personally, and I want to see hundreds of declarations of faith before I continue. Do it now. I know exactly what you're going through right now. I know because I've sat across from thousands of people just like you over the past 4 decades, and I've heard the same story repeated so many times that I could tell it myself. You wake up every morning with a weight on your chest. Before your feet even touch the floor, you're already thinking about bills, about debts, about obligations you can barely meet. You work hard, probably harder than most people around you. You do everything you're supposed to do, but no matter what you try, the money situation never truly changes. Some months are a little better, some months are a little worse, but you never break through. You never reach that point where money flows easily, where you're not constantly calculating whether you can afford things, where you actually feel financially free. And the worst part, everyone around you has advice. Your brother-in-law tells you to invest in crypto. Your co-worker says you need a side hustle. Some guru on the internet wants to sell you a course about passive income. Just work harder, they say. Just save more. Just think positive. But none of it works, does it? Here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. The system you're operating in was never designed for you to win. It was designed by people who already have wealth to ensure they keep it while you remain trapped in a cycle of earning, spending, struggling, and repeating. I see this all the time. People come to me after they've tried everything the modern world offers. Financial advisors who take fees regardless of whether you make money. Investment strategies that work great until they don't. Self-help books that make you feel inspired for a week before you're right back where you started. And it's not your fault. These methods all ignore the fundamental spiritual laws that govern abundance. They treat money as a purely physical phenomenon, when in reality, money is energy. It's spiritual force made manifest in physical form. The Talmud says, Parnasa, which means livelihood or sustenance, comes from heaven. This means that the flow of abundance in your life is governed by spiritual laws, not just by how hard you work or how smart your investments are. Most financial advice focuses only on the physical level: how much you earn, how much you save, how much you invest, what your credit score is. But wealth begins at the spiritual level. And if you don't address the spiritual blocks, if you don't activate the spiritual laws of prosperity, nothing in the physical world will permanently change. You've been told that wealth comes from hard work alone, that if you just put in enough hours, if you sacrifice enough, if you grind enough, eventually you'll make it. That's a lie. I've studied the ancient texts for nearly 5 decades. I've seen what works and what doesn't. I've observed thousands of people from every background imaginable, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that hard work is necessary, but not sufficient. Without spiritual alignment, hard work just makes you tired. The Jewish people understood this truth thousands of years ago. That's why we've been able to rebuild our wealth in every country we've been scattered to, often from nothing, often while facing persecution that would have destroyed other peoples entirely. It's not because we're smarter, it's not because we work harder. It's because we know secrets that most people will never learn. Here's the universal truth that changes everything. The Kabbalah teaches that salt is one of the most spiritually potent substances in all of creation. It preserves, it purifies, it attracts, and it seals. The ancient rabbis used salt in temple rituals specifically because of its unique spiritual properties. When I first studied this with my grandfather, I didn't fully grasp the implications. But after years of applying these teachings and watching the results, I finally understood. Salt is not just a seasoning, it's a spiritual technology that our ancestors mastered over millennia. When you combine salt with specific intentions, with water as a purifying medium, with the timing of sunrise which represents renewal, you create a spiritual vortex that literally rewires your relationship with abundance. I've personally witnessed this work for people who had been in debt for decades and became completely debt-free within 18 months. I've seen it work for business owners who went from barely surviving to generating more revenue than they ever imagined. I've seen it work for ordinary people who simply wanted to stop worrying about money every single day. And in every single case, they followed the exact method I'm about to teach you. Now, I'm going to reveal the exact method. This comes directly from Kabbalistic teachings that have been practiced for over 3,000 years. It's been used by Jewish families to activate and protect wealth for generations, and it works. But before I show you the steps, you need to understand something critical. This is not a game. This is not something you do casually or as an experiment. When you activate these ancient spiritual laws, real forces begin to move. Real energy begins to shift in your life, and you will see real results, but only if you follow every step exactly as I teach it. You might be wondering, why this specific combination of elements? Why these particular steps? The answer goes back to the earliest teachings of Jewish mysticism. The ancient rabbis discovered through revelation and through careful observation that certain substances, certain words, certain actions performed at certain times create powerful spiritual effects. What I'm teaching you isn't my invention. I'm not clever enough to create something like this. I'm simply a messenger passing down what was passed down to me through an unbroken chain of teachers stretching back to antiquity. Every element of this method has a purpose. Salt represents preservation and purification. Water represents the flow of blessing. The timing of sunrise represents new beginnings and the activation of divine mercy. The specific words represent your conscious intention interacting with universal consciousness. When you combine these elements in the right order with the right intention, you create a spiritual opening that allows abundance to flow into your physical reality. This is completely different from anything else you've